All right, so we'll start over. So how I'm dressed today, and from the first slide, we're going to talk about the rainbow. And the biggest thing needs to be on your radar. You guys have another paper. So since we're not doing exams, your next paper is next week and your presentation. So some of you will go Monday and some of you go Wednesday, and we're all doing it next week. I'm not dragging this out for 3 weeks again, unless there's a really extenuating situation. So I do need you to pick your topics if you're not here, which is half of you, by email, or if you're on Zoom when we get done, you can talk to me. So we're going to talk about the rainbow. And all right. Sorry. Let me see. So I will tell you, kids love vegetables and fruit. You just have to, they imitate you. So you're eating in front of kids, don't go, ooh, this is gross. They do have, but they love fruit, especially because fruit's really sweet. And as I've talked about before, and I'll keep talking about it, fruit has sugar, but the sugar is bound to fiber. Everyone talks about it who is a nutritionist. And so it's totally different from eating the processed bars that have fiber and sugar, because the sugar and fiber are not tied together. So this sugar is actually feeding your microbiome. Your microbiome loves you. And I talked about it last week. You guys, I think most of you did turn in your Healthy April. And in that, you also told me what you're doing for your next month. It's my other class I have to have a chat with about that. So when I think of the rainbow, we have to talk about the pH scale. And so I think you've all heard about pH, whether it was in a chemistry class or something. pH scale is only about 100 years old. It blew me away. It was a Google Doodle where I learned that. So most people think 7 is neutral. And then things that are below 7 on the pH scale are considered acidic. And the lower the pH, the more acidic. Possibly one of the most acidic places on this planet is inside of you, which is your stomach. So your stomach pH is apparently about that of an actual lemon. And above 7 is considered basic, or the original word was alkaline. So whenever you see the AL prefix, that tells you it comes from Arabic. So like algebra actually came from Arabic, and then kali is for potassium, kalium. So it was because some of the first bases were those. In our body, though, our pH is actually not 7. If your pH was 7 in your blood, you would not be alert right now. You'd be in a coma or dead. So our pH of our blood is actually 7.35. And it's a really small window. So the pH scale is a logarithmic scale, which means log base 10. And every 1 point difference is actually a 10-fold difference in hydrogen ion concentration. And so our blood pH has a really narrow range, like 7.2 to around 7.45. And so 7.35 is more what's considered neutral. Some of that has to do with our temperature of our body is actually warmer than room temperature, but our body always needs to be slightly alkaline, and this is actually off. I plagiarized it from somewhere. You're dead like below 7. There's no way you're going to make it down that far. But I read an article about 20 some years ago. It was actually by an acupuncturist from University of California at San Francisco. And he talked about that we, as Americans, are in a perpetual state of metabolic acidosis. We are in chronic metabolic acidosis, and that was pretty much every health issue you could almost link to that, short of having an accident. And he, 20 some years ago, could not have foreseen how much worse it could get. And so we're definitely in a state of acidosis, but being acidic doesn't mean you're below 7. It means you're below 7.35. We actually want to be in this range. around 7.35, 7.45. So in the past, when nurses actually had to take a full year of chemistry to get a bachelor's in nursing, now they just have to take one class. And I would have students who would come back to finish their requirements, and they would already be working. Like, and this one lady was working, it was actually a guy who was working in the intensive care unit. And when we talked about acidosis and stuff, he came up and I remember he said, thank you. He said, this is like a huge thing for us. If we can keep their blood pH above between 7.35 and 7.45, we keep them, we get them out of the intensive care unit like half the time or a quarter of the time. And so it's a big deal in medicine. So when you take anatomy, we were fondly talking about it a moment ago, you get to memorize all these things that happen when you're in metabolic acidosis. And again, they'll teach you what the causes are and stuff, and which is metabolism, which means our crappy lifestyles. But you get everything that doesn't feel good. And every one of those symptoms is something you like have friends who deal with, but we say it's other reasons. This is, to me, better than that picture because it shows you the difference. And again, this is, you're still alive. This is 7.2 blood. And this is what we want our blood to look like, where it looks healthy. It's got this nice pink color. The cells are nice and round. And over here, the cells are clumping up. They're not flowing correctly. The biggest cause of that is, well, it has some of them, eating the crappy, highly refined diet. And how you can make it alkaline is fruits and vegetables. They have, and I show this slide again. I can't remember where I got this picture from. Animal products is another issue. And it also has to do with the amount of animal products that and where we're getting our source of animal products. Our highly refined stuff, which is the sugar, the white bread, the pastas. This talk I was listening to yesterday, he said the worst of all of them is the highly refined pastas that are then pressed into shapes. Actually, number one was what Josie gave up, which is the breakfast cereals. Was the highest of everything, and it was actually cornflakes was worse than Cocoa Puffs and other things like that, which was really interesting because they're probably because they're sawdust, but they're completely refined. Anyway, soft drinks, prescription drugs, processed food, they should just put that first, and that's the thing that everyone said. So again, I enjoyed reading your guys' healthy changes. And to keep it alkaline, we're going to eat the rainbow. So in the month of April, a lot of you gave up crap and hopefully still are. And so our theme this week is you're going to try and eat the rainbow. So we're going to walk through that. We're going to talk about acidosis and alkalosis, but we're doing this to try to keep us out of acidosis. Yeah. And their rainbow is the wrong colors. So you guys have, again, presentations next week. Beware of the wall of text. So I put this in there to remind you, people don't like words. What was your reaction as soon as you saw that? You're like, oh my gosh, this is a little bit too much. This is actually an abstract from a paper. And this is also to remind you and to remind me to remind you, you do need to find at least 2 scientific studies, and you are going to talk about them in your show this time, as well as in your paper. So a solid 1 slide. And you want to put it in your words, so not their words. So I'm pretty sure this is just, I copied the abstract specifically to point out some things. And I can understand this, you would hope. But there were a couple things, oops, sorry, is basically, this was a review of a whole bunch of stuff on acidosis. And they talk about, it comes from our excessive consumption of this chronic state of acidosis. And this was actually a 2017 article. And our biggest issues are sources that are high in phosphorus and protein. And actually it's animal protein, because plant protein doesn't seem to cause that, because plants, when you eat vegetables, they're so high in the minerals. And these in green, this is just all the things, pretty much every chronic disease you can think of is linked to acidosis. When you learn about metabolic acidosis, I remember learning about it in anatomy. They completely say it's all about diabetes, and it's only for people with diabetes, but it's all of us. And it's like what came first, acidosis or the diabetes. Well, in this day and age, apparently it's the crappy diet gives us acidosis. So not just diabetes. Some people never get diabetes, and that's the thing. Some people never get COVID. That's the thing that we're all trying to figure out. And they pretty much know what it is. It's your gut. So I was listening to this other talk, and I have to find it because it was hysterical. This guy who, now I'm not going to remember what he did. Anyway, it was somebody talking about him, and was back before the turn of the century. He won the Nobel Prize in 1908. And I'm not going to remember why. I can't believe I forget the story, because I was telling Joey, it was just so amazing. But then his first wife died from cholera, and he was so upset, he drank cholera tainted water, and he didn't die. And he's like, well, that's weird. So then he gave it to his colleague, and he said, you need to try this. His colleague drank it, knew what it was. This is how scientists work. They do weird stuff. And the scientist, this guy drank it, and he didn't die. And they're like, huh, how comes everybody else who's drinking this water is dying? And so they give it to their third colleague. He's like, oh, I want to try it. Well, he ends up really, really sick and almost dies. And so they're like, well, what is it? And so these guys actually, they figure out it has to do with your intestines, with your microbiome. And he ends up trying to die again because he gets married again, and she dies, and he takes like a shot of typhus, and again he doesn't die. But it all has to do with, he had like the best microbiome ever, but then he ends up dying. I don't remember from what. And right before he died, he proposed this idea that about a healthy gut and stuff. The year after he dies, antibiotics are discovered. And so if we want to talk about how to ruin a healthy digestive system fast, antibiotics absolutely save lives, but every doctor out there will agree they are way overused, and it's caused so many other issues. So children, I think it's by the age of 2, have been on, typical American child has been on 8 rounds of antibiotics. And we've like destroyed, right before COVID came out, they had linked autism to the microbiome and the overuse of antibiotics, and then COVID happened. And there's nothing out there about it. So who knows? But your microbiome is really key, and it's diversity. So that's why we're doing the rainbow, because when you eat a diverse amount of colors, it's going to make it healthy. And this is also why with the microbiome that Stephen can eat meat as well as all of his vegetables, and because he did not thrive when he didn't eat meat. And that's one of the things this guy talks about. Whereas Miranda, we both thrive without meat. And so this guy was the same way. He'd been vegan for a couple of years, and he was not thriving at all. And so he said he's a pegan. So he said he's paleo vegan, which it was just really funny how he said it. And he just had this, so because he eats meat 3 times a day, but with vegetables are like most of his meal, and the quality of meat he's getting is going to be high. I mean, his lifestyle is something, I really enjoy him because he's very charismatic and he's very knowledgeable, but he has 15 acres. He has a permaculture like garden for him and his family. And I'm like, that's lovely. We don't all have that luxury to have 15 acres and to have a permaculture and to have all this income to put into the soil to renutrient it. So let's figure out the steps that we can take so that everyone is healthy. And it comes down to the microbiome, that for some reason we all have different ones. And he was saying his wife, she was somebody who could handle the without having high amounts of protein and fat in her diet, whereas he could not. So anyway, and then the other thing is they keep going and going through the abstract, and it's always interesting because it's at the end of the abstracts where they finally come to conclusions. So you learn at some point when you have to read a lot of papers that you kind of skim through the beginning to the end, but that it is the amount, it's this balance of fruit and vegetables with the other sources, and they all agree. And it's a thing that doesn't make sense why the food pyramids. He actually came up with his own food pyramids, and he has 3 of them depending on your body. metabolism. And so they do this thing to determine it. He said there was a really quick way you could figure it out. He said, eat an apple. I was going to ask you this. And he said, if you feel full after for like 2-3 hours, you're probably somebody who can handle a lot of carbohydrates. And he said when he eats an apple, he's still hungry. And so I was going to ask you, Stephen, if that, or no, when you eat an apple.
Depends on the apple. Usually I have a tough time.
That's what I was thinking.
Finishing an apple, honestly. But I can eat like 100 bananas. So it's.
Oh, that bananas are an interesting one. It's bananas. Anyway, that your plate should be a plethora of vegetables in all different colors. And this was, I don't know if this was a diagram from their paper, I think it is. But if you are in metabolic acidosis, which again, Americans, the diet of highly processed food, highly refined, high sugar, from breakfast cereals. I mean, I had used to give a talk about that. And I said, you know, how we eat our breakfast now is so unhealthy. We'd be better to go back and eating eggs and bacon and stuff. But you have to find something healthier than the bacon part. But anyway, so you get bone fractures. And so they want to convince you the number one cause of bone fractures is milk. The milk industry pays a lot of money to try to convince you of that, but it is acidosis. When they look at people who come with the same genetic pool, so people who are still in Africa and they're having 8 or 10 or 12 children and they're not drinking milk, they don't have any osteoporosis. They have strong bones because they're walking around all day and they're eating close to pretty high plant-based, and if they have meat, it's like a flavoring for their food. And then if they look at women African American descent in this country, high rates of osteoporosis and high rates of dairy consumption, and so it doesn't make sense, except that the dairy industry has a lot of money to convince you that their calcium is going to make your bones strong. And another thing it causes is high cortisol. And so if you're not sure what cortisol is, the Cowardly Lion, Joey and I went to the Wizard of Oz Museum in Kansas and had a lot of fun. But so the Cowardly Lion is cortisol. He had serious cortisol issues, which is what's going to cause the whole insulin issues. But anyway, you're going to lose muscle mass and you're going to have high blood pressure and everything else with it, which is also going to lead to type 2 diabetes and then kidney issues. We'll finally get to the kidneys this week, hopefully. And so we're eating the rainbow. And when you do acidosis in your anatomy class, you probably do this equation because this is what it's all about. So in our blood, this is a beautiful molecule. And if you actually look at that molecule, you can see the CO2 in it. And we regulate our pH by our breathing. And if you take out the CO2, you're left with H2O. And so our body, the arrows going both ways means our body can change our pH. pH is related to this molecule or that atom, the hydrogen ion. And so as you have more hydrogen ion, you're going to lower your pH. So when this is bumped in this direction towards me, you're going to be in acidosis. So if you bump it in that direction, so you have low hydrogen ion, you're going to be in the alkalosis. And so bicarbonate is what does it. If you eat food high in bicarbonate, it binds to the hydrogen and you push yourself in that direction. Also, breathing does it. And so that whole idea of breathing before you eat a meal helps to slow everything down and actually shifts you into alkalosis. But probably the highest source of bicarbonate is one of the most maligned foods out there, which is potatoes. And you'll see why. I have a thing about potatoes and I love potatoes, but Mr. Potato Head, potatoes are really high in bicarbonate. And so one of the problems when they look at glycemic index and stuff is they're isolating things simply. But it's hard to see because it's projector, but this is in Nepal and I'm probably the only white person to ever actually walk this path. These are straight cliffs going down and we were going up to Alubara, which is the potato fields, the high potato fields. Because Pimba, which is who I get my last name from, who's the real Sherpa, wanted to go up there to show us something. I don't know what, but we hiked all day straight up. You can see we have like, we have wimpy backpacks. We left everything behind because he said the yak herders would put us up. He had been a yak herder with his grandpa when he was a young boy before he became a Sherpa, a mountain climber. And so we're walking, and this is, sure enough, we found this is a goat herder's little place, and it was luxurious. And the goat herder came, the pony guy had told us that the goat herder lived over that way and to just wait for him and he'd put us up. And so sure enough, the goat herder showed up with all of his goats, and he kind of just stood there, and then the goats climbed all over us, the baby goats. As long as you're a female baby goat, you're in good shape, because males, there's only like 2 or 3 males in his 200 herd. Then he made us dinner. And so he went and picked mushrooms. And so that whole thing where you're not supposed to eat wild mushrooms unless you know what they are, I had not eaten all day. We had like one thing for lunch at the lady in the tea house down below. And so it was like this total act of faith that you hear about, that you trust in nature. But anyway, so he made us mushrooms and had the greatest smile ever. And I look at these pictures sometimes when COVID's going on, and I'm like, I don't think COVID went up there, because they were in like the remotest place you possibly could be. And then there's Joey and me sleeping. The goats had to sleep in a different place that evening. And then we woke up in the morning, and that's when I went outside to empty my bladder. That was my view, the best sunrise I ever saw. So that is Annapurna, which is one of the 14,000 meter peaks. They're only in the Himalayas. And there was a Sherpa last year who climbed every one of them, or the year before. It was during COVID. And then he made us, it's the only time I've ever had goat's milk. It was fresh goat's milk. And the pony guy came back because he had to collect the goat poop, because the secret, there was all the goat poop bags. That's what he did for a living. He hiked up every day. He just wore flip-flops, and then we picked more mushrooms. But anyway, down below, it was the best apples I've ever had. Talking about apples earlier. And the secret to their apples was the goat poop that the donkeys would bring down every day to fertilize. And so their soil is not depleted. When I was in Nepal, both times I was there, I really felt the healthiest. I mean, other than depleted from the high elevation. And it's probably because their soil is still so rich in nutrients, because they don't use fertilizer. And the over-fertilization, the over-nitrogenization of our soil has destroyed all the vitamins and minerals in our soil. But anyway, the goat herder told us to go find the yak herder. So the next day we went for another walk. And this little cave is, the yak herder's going to come there. And I just start freaking out, because I'm like, there's no way we're going to sleep in there. There's no way anybody sleeps in here. And there was like kind of garbage around and stuff. And Pim is just sleeping. He's like, he'll be here. And I'm like sitting there freaking out. You guys would all freak out because we're in the middle of nowhere. We have no food. He's like, he'll be here. And I don't know how he could be so calm, but he was. And that's us inside. I don't know how we were all little people, and so 4 of us somehow fit in there. But he made us Dalbot, and then insisted that we follow him the next day to his luxurious mansion, which was the higher. We are now above Mount Rainier top, but yaks suffer from reverse altitude sickness. They can't go below 3,500 meters, so about 10,000 feet or something, 9,000 feet. And so in the summertime, when they're having their babies, they go to the high up. And so he took us there. We were there for 2 days, and we saw blue poppy, which is extremely rare, and the golden butterfly, which is also extremely rare. And then we hiked up, and we saw a yak. I saw many more yaks, but we were so mesmerized, even though it's like the phantom yak. And then every yak and goat herder up there heard about this little white girl who was there, and they all came to visit me, and they'd all bring me like something, like a can of salmon. It was like, I was like the Queen of Sheba or something. Everybody's, she brought, she was the one who brought Solomon stuff. But I was like, right, it was pretty amazing. And then we hiked over the rainbow. I got the hat was the greatest thing because it was so cold. And the only reason we did it is because the real Sherpa carried all our bags because I was so slow. And we went over the rainbow, which is what you're going to do this week, and had the best food. Okay, the mushroom soup and that stuff was, but this is a place, and I'm really worried because they've now made a road to this town, which is over the Thorong Long Pass, which is the most hiked place in Nepal, which is hard to believe. You would think it would be Everest Base Camp. But anyway, we're walking down into this village, and this is like 2 weeks later. And every person from the village is at this little restaurant. And there's not a single white person. We were there in the monsoon season, so I didn't see many white people. And I was just like in my head going, well, I'm going back to that place because like the best places are the place the local people go to. And we went there every day for a week. But eating the rainbow, these guys don't have to worry about what's the pH of their blood. Are they in acidosis or alkalosis? And a lot of that is, and they're not worried, am I eating red or whatever, but you guys are going to eat color this week. And it's not that you're going to eat only red today and only orange tomorrow and stuff. You're going to try and see how many colors you can eat each day. So I opened the folder. The second page has actually a sheet. You don't have to use it. You can do it however you want. The goal is you're trying to do the best you can. I will warn you, and we're going to walk through the colors. They almost all, this chart separated them, but almost all of them put blues and purples together because they're really hard to get both of them. Green is simple enough. Orange is actually more challenging this time of year than, well, no, we have carrots and stuff, but kind of keep track. And it's the idea of diversity will diversify your microbiome. And it doesn't mean this is the only thing you're eating. And yeah. And it can be in one meal. That's what a lot of people do who do this. I've had people do this as their challenge for a whole month. And they end up just making rainbow salad every day. But you usually have to hide the blueberries. That's what people do for blue. There's not many blues out there. This is what most people think of when you say you're going to eat the rainbow. And this is what you're not going to eat this week is all this rainbow, highly artificial, like these artificial colors are so bad for you and are all known carcinogens and stuff. And then they get banned and they come out with a new blue color. And then it's the combination of different colors. When I was a kid, there were no blue M&Ms because the blue was a known carcinogen. And so it really amazes me that blue is back out there. And my brother talks about, my nephew is older and all, he's like in his 30s now. So this would be 30 years ago. And he had a friend coming to his like birthday party when he was 6 or 7. The father drops him off and it's like, you can't have anything blue. The kid was allergic to blue, but it was the blue coloring. So anyway, and it was that the blue food dye. Yeah, but Skittles or M&Ms or whatever you have, cupcakes, Kool-Aid, right, everything, even Oreos apparently are. And then the kids end up having that. So we're not eating all the artificially colored rainbow. That doesn't count. It's fruits and vegetables. And yeah, so we're going to eat the rainbow. And this is actually interesting. You find all these things. You're going to be that person at the grocery store. And I've had this happen so many times that people come up to me at the grocery store and they're like, I want to eat like you. And I'm like, well, you can. That's because my cart like has fruits and vegetables and stuff in it. But we're going to walk through these and yeah, there's some fun talks about the different things. All right. There was a slide, there was a picture missing. What happened to it? Interesting. All right. And then there's actually, this is a whole, I don't want to say fad, but a whole thing in schools, but I don't think it is right now. But it is for kids to eat the rainbow. So it was the idea of getting kids to eat more of their vegetables and fruit. And so there's all these books and all these songs out there and kid videos. You guys are going to be watching like actually a seminar. There's a choice of 3. The one is about eating the rainbow, and she's a nutritionist, and I actually really enjoyed her talk. And then the other ones aren't talking about the rainbow, but she goes through a lot of this, some of the stuff I go through, but she does some of them in more detail and stuff. And so if you want like a lot of the science geekiness, but again, the more diversity, these guys are coming to the party of eating the rainbow, and your microbiome will be very happy. The one lady, you get a choice of 3 different seminars to listen to. The one is the guy behind Wheat Belly. He wrote the book Wheat Belly, and I'd never heard him talk before. He's pretty charismatic, but he's moved on to microbiome. And he talks about a diverse number of stuff. But one of the things, and I don't think it's in this podcast that I put out there for you, I think it was another one I was listening to for him. He started making his own yogurt. I don't remember, I was telling you guys about this last week. And he actually has a blog and teaches you how to make your own yogurt. And he said he totally changed people, like every health issue, like within a week of eating your own yogurt, because you can colonize it correctly, because the stuff in the store is not going to. Anyway, he was saying collagen, like all the collagen people take, or they actually get dermal implants of collagen, that will make like less than a 1% change. And he said when they started making their own yogurt, it was like their skin, every skin issue changed, and the collagen changed by like huge percentage and stuff. And so it's all coming from, basically it's a prebiotic. So you're trying to seed the microbiome to get it to start being healthier and stuff. So we're gonna walk through the rainbow, and then we'll come back, talk about acidosis probably in the next class. So red is, first thing I think of is lycopene, which is this molecule. So a reminder, some of you are doing like magnesium or calcium or something. And Miranda, you gave me 2. You got to pick one. I'll do B1. Do you want magnesium? All right. So you have a magnesium, you're doing B1. We're good. That you want the molecule if you're doing a vitamin, and then if you're just doing like magnesium or potassium or sodium, that was the other one, is iodine. And I have a list because I don't want to talk about stuff if you guys are going to, but for those of you who've been in my other classes, this is all carbons and hydrogens. This guy's very hydrophobic, which is fascinating. But eating red on the rainbow, that you can find all these things, but all of them are going to be really high in antioxidants. Anti-inflammatory goes hand in hand with antioxidants and pro-immune system. Like all 3 of them always go together, no matter what you're doing. And that is true for every color of the rainbow, that they're going to have a plethora of antioxidants, and you're getting different antioxidants. So like these are going to be very hydrophobic, but when we get into other ones, they're going to be hydrophilic. So normally when you take a class, like what I'm supposed to be teaching you is about the vitamins, and I'm supposed to teach you A, C, and E are the antioxidants. And that's totally a myth, but they're really helpful. When they're packaged in real food, you are getting a whole bunch of molecules similar to vitamin A. I think that actually might be my next picture there. But they're more than antioxidants. They're always anti-inflammatory in the immune system. And it is, if you start eating fruits and vegetables, and a lot of you did the 3 pieces of fruit, you found you started eating less processed food. Like I had a student in my other class, and he's like, once you did that talk and you said, wait, the sugar in fruit isn't actually sugar because it's bound to the fiber, he's like, well, that solved all my problem, because he's like, I was having trouble sleeping because I was hungry all the time. I was eating granola bars and stuff because they said they were hungry, or they said they were healthy. And he's like, as soon as I switched to fruit, it was like I could eat a piece of fruit and I was full and I felt much lighter. And he wasn't trying to lose weight. He's like, my waistline changed, and it was just from eating the fruit. Radishes, I have radishes, I think, later on. I love radishes, have that peppery taste to them, but lycopene. I think I have another picture. And so watermelon, guava, nobody ever does guava, grapefruit. I have grapefruit under yellow because I always put it under yellow, but I don't know why. Tomatoes, a lot of people were talking beforehand. A lot of people have written that they don't like tomatoes. And I agree with you. The store-bought tomatoes have absolutely no taste at all. Go buy a tomato plant. They're so easy to grow. Our climate is perfect. It's just, it hasn't been yet. But having your own tomatoes, just like a cherry tomato plant, if you don't have a lot of room, there's nothing like it. I like the little orange cherry tomatoes are like my bliss point. They're like the sweetest thing ever. But I grow a whole bunch of tomatoes and can't wait until this weekend when I can finally, I think, plant them because it's gonna, soil will finally warm up and it won't be a muddy mess out there. But yeah, it's a totally different story. Anyway, these guys, lycopene are food that when you're eating foods that are rich in the red, oranges, and yellows, they're going to have these molecules. That must be the next one. And they actually, no, that's strawberries. They actually protect you from sun damage before the damage happens. And so it's not that you eat a tomato and then you go and stand out in the sun. Well, I don't know if the sun's going to come out now, but and you're not going to get sunburn. It's that you're eating like this whole week. You guys eat the rainbow this whole week, you're going to like up all of this. And then next week when the sun does finally come out and it's finally 70 degrees, you're going to be good. But it doesn't mean you can stand out there all day. But vitamin D deficiency is a huge issue because nobody can go out in the sun. And then we all put on sunscreen and that totally blocks your body's ability to make it. Yeah, and strawberries, berries, strawberries, raspberries, you can pick your favorite. Berries are just so rich in antioxidants, anti-inflammatory too. And this is, I think I showed this picture before, it's a cement mixture. That's like my dream house, is the little strawberry house. And the guy let me go inside. It's just like the cutest thing. But yeah, strawberries. Those are strawberries. So they have these, the anthocyanins, which I'm going to get to on a later slide, and then the aroma from different phenol groups. So pomegranates, I said put them under red because I think of them as red as opposed to purple. It doesn't really matter. Your pomegranates are not in season right now, so they're going to be astronomical if you find them anywhere. But somebody in my other class did a really awesome talk on pomegranates. And those are molecules that they have found so far in pomegranates. And what I wanted to mention about that is none of these work by themselves. So in whole food, the molecules all work in a very synergistic way. They amplify each other. And so when we try to isolate them and see what does this one do, what does that one do, when you're eating it, taking it as a supplement in an isolated form, it doesn't do the same as when it's in the whole food. And we can't package them because there's also the vibrational packaging of them. And there's the anthocyanins. And you'll see these pictures again. The art group just means there's different things there. And so they're not showing me the specific one here, but you'll see these are polyphenols. The anthocyanins are what are called polyphenols, which is now like a buzzword in nutrition. So for those who took Chem 105, a phenol is the benzene ring with OH. And so it's called a poly because there's multiple OHs and multiple benzene rings. But all the polyphenols have that kind of look to them. This one's on Texas. This is a flavonoid, which has a similar, but it's missing one of the phenol looks to it. Anyway. And this is almost a molecule that's found in cinnamon. But your last presentation at the end of the term is going to be on spices. So I stayed away from spices with this talk. So I saved the best one for last because there's so many spices and we can do a lot with that. Cranberries. I had somebody one time do a talk on cranberries and they are out of season right now. And you have to be careful because drinking cranberry juice, you can't do this as the juice because the juice has no fiber. So then you're getting too much sugar. You're getting only the sugar. And then that should get a bad name. But cranberries, when they're in season, which is always in the fall, cranberries are just amazing. This is just to remind you again, you're going to do a scientific study. And that one was on hamsters, and they just saw all this good stuff that happened apparently with their steroid profile. Cranberries are interesting because, again, this word, anthocyanins, you guys aren't going to have to say those words because you get like vitamin A or something. But that's anything that has that red or purplish color is going to have the anthocyanins. And depending on what the R group is, you get a different color. And so there's actually a slide out there that I have not been able to find that explains. They've actually tried to show all the different colors. And this guy, the anthocyanins, they change color based on the pH. And so that also has an effect on those. But cranberry, one of the molecules in cranberry attracts the bacteria that will colonize in your bladder. So when bladder infections happen, the best thing to do is you have to get straight cranberry juice, not the stuff, not ocean spray where it's got sugar and stuff, because sugar is going to just feed the bacteria, and celery. That for some reason binds them and pulls them out, and you gotta do it right away. And you can't do any sugar, you have to be extremely strict. Beets, nobody has ever picked beets as their topic, and I am amazed. Beets are actually considered a superfood. Does anybody else eat beets other than me? Everybody makes faces about beets. Joey refuses to eat beets, although right now he has a cold and he's taking beet juice that I make him. So when I'm sick, the first thing I do, I got a juicer for that. And beets they're actually sweet. That's this whole sugar beet thing, but all beets are sweet. Beets are a superfood. They increase your endurance like a huge amount. And so they found with people who ate beets or beet juice that their endurance just like went quite high. I have no idea. Everything with exercise and endurance comes back to the nitrous oxide in there, but I don't know. And I don't know why nobody ever picked beets for their topic, because there's so many fun memes that you can do with beet as the word in there, and like the amount of pictures I had to choose from. I went with Michael. But and then cherries. I had somebody in my other class did cherries, and I thought, okay, because I wasn't thinking it's not cherry season yet, and I'm trying not to think that it's not cherry season yet, because this might be one of my absolute favorite. Whatever fruit is in season, that was the other thing all these people talk about. You want to eat in season. When something is in season, absolutely. And so we are really blessed here, because this is like cherry area for the whole country and stuff. And we have different types of cherries, but this was the thing that she talked about. Cherries, there's something else, cherries. I was told to eat a lot of cherries for, but anyway, cherries actually have melatonin in them. And so for sleep, melatonin is one of the strongest antioxidants in our body. And it's released at night. So while you're sleeping, it's cleaning up all the mess during the day. But cherries apparently are really high in it. All right, we're gonna move to orange. I could have kept going on and on about finding things that are red food. But really nobody likes beets. I had a gal in my class who was a yoga teacher a couple of years ago, and she made this Bombay beets. That was one of the most heavenly things. Anyway, beet curry. Use the greens from beets in your smoothie. Orange. So there's so many things that are orange. So carrots, instead of buying a bag of carrots, if you buy them either, especially at the farmer's market, I shouldn't tell you all this because then I'll have competition for it, but when you go to the farmer's market, and they won't have them until late summer when carrots finally come in. I have the hardest time growing carrots. I finally grew them last year. I every year try, and they just don't seem to do well. So I don't know if some slugs or something are eating mine or what goes on. But they are like the sweetest thing. It's just like you just eat them there. There's some people who are like, you should eat them with the dirt. Don't even clean the dirt off because you want the dirt. You want to eat dirt because dirt has the microbiome in it. And so you're getting your bacteria. I'm not, I can tell you to do that. But anyway, and then you can use the greens in your smoothie. It's a greens, but carrots, it's where the name carotenoids came from. So most people have heard of beta carotene, and beta is the second letter in the Greek alphabet, which must mean there's other ones. And so there are actually a whole mix of carotenoids. Vitamin A, this molecule is perfectly symmetrical, just like lycopene was. I have a picture at some point where I show them all together, but vitamin A, our body cuts that in half and then it gets changed. And so basically you get two on the same molecule. But these molecules really fascinate me. And when we do spices, because they almost all have the symmetry to them. And I don't know why. I think that's pretty fascinating. So carrots. This was a study and they found if you ate 5 per day for 2 weeks, and I'm like, that's it. Got that. And you actually repaired damage, DNA damage. So that is DNA. And if your DNA is that damaged, I'm not sure what could fix it, but the previous one was if you had it before the lycopene. This one actually is repairing the actual damage. And they probably are both doing both things. They're preventing damage, they're protecting, and they're helping to repair. And then pumpkin. It is not pumpkin season. I really should teach this class in the fall, except I've learned my lesson. So there we go. So there's beta carotene, there's lutein. And so I think that picture I had on the other slide that they said was lutein. And so I'm going to warn like Amber and all of you of this. When you Google a picture, and then you should get a whole bunch of them. And if you notice, oh, this one's really nice, I like this picture. That other one that said it was lutein, that had absolutely no OH on. This is still hydrophobic. They're almost the exact same molecule, which is quite fascinating. And then it gets changed. This guy is really high. You know, this one, the third one, the fourth, the last one, the fifth one, I've always heard about in pumpkin. And that's part of what makes it so special. I honestly have no idea what that dot is in the middle there. I've never seen that kind of nomenclature in drawings and stuff. So that fascinates me. But these molecules almost all look the same in slight variations. And they're found in the red, orange, and yellow. And so the carotenoids were first isolated from carrots. And there's actually a mix. And it's one of the things like looking at multivitamins that it should have a mix carotenoids, not vitamin A. So there's questions of vitamin A may actually be toxic as vitamin A, that we should get it always as the carotenoids, but I don't know. I'll leave. Yeah, you guys get to find the dark side, which isolating the vitamins, I think they probably all have a dark side, but then the bright side. And so, yeah, pumpkins. And it just drives me crazy. Everybody buys all these pumpkins and they put them out as a decoration. And then they just sit there and they rot. And I'm like, you have this superfood just sitting there. And so when I go to my mom's, all her neighbors know at Christmas, they save their pumpkins until I get there. Their pumpkins they had as a decoration for a month. And I get there and I cook the pumpkins and we eat everything pumpkin for like a month that I'm at my mom's, and it's amazing. Everything you can make pumpkin soup, pumpkin curry. I had a pumpkin potluck one time. It was hysterical because everybody was like really into it. Pumpkin chili. I know it sounds weird, but you can add pumpkin to everything and people like, I don't know. Anyway, so something happened to everybody's food. So one person like they put it down, they went to get something, their dog ate it. Somebody else put it in the backseat of their car and then they had to stop real quick and the whole thing ended up on the floor and it was hysterical. We only had like one thing that we all ate, but anyway, everything with the carotenoids, you've always heard eat carrots for better eyesight and stuff. And so I will leave that for Amber to talk more about it, but all of these are really important for the eyes. And that's probably, I'm not even going to try and say that word, but that's probably where lutein got its name, was because they found either it really helped that area or they found it. And so in the retina of your eye. And right, we don't want that to happen because that would not be a good thing. But you can find canned pumpkin at this time of year. Pumpkin has, and you're like, well, what's that mean? I don't know if that's a big number because they changed it to milligrams. I mean, that's 7.3 grams of any vitamin. That's like huge. And again, it's going to rearrange your slides. So just go with however it is. A reminder for next week is if you have an Apple device, actually for all of you, one of the things you probably want to do, because I'll have the things so you can hook up your computer and stuff, but just as a backup, one of the things that would really work is upload your PowerPoint onto Blackboard. Because I can access Blackboard from this classroom, and then you can just open your PowerPoint from that as a backup way if we don't remember passwords, because I know my password. Most of you did okay. The easiest thing is by far the little USB, the memory stick, but just as a backup in case cords aren't working and things like that, which happens. So basically it's 3 times the amount of vitamin A that you need, and you're actually getting more than that if you're getting it from the whole food because it has a synergistic effect. So it was something with oranges. Oranges only have like 60, 50 milligrams, something like that, of vitamin C. And you can be like, well, I can go and take like 1,000 milligram, like one of those horse pills. And the thing is in the orange, that vitamin C is coming packed with other stuff. And so it's amplified. So it actually has like a 10, 20, 40 fold higher amount. And so looking at how much is in the foods is actually not correct. But the other thing that's really cool, like this picture, and you'll all have a picture like that because they've done it for all the vitamins, which is where you find the sources. And that picture really amazes me because of all the green in it. Because when I think of vitamin A, I think of red, orange, and yellow, like the earth tones, and that it's loaded with them. Anyway, and right, it is one of the powerful, again, A, C, and E. So ACE is what you learn in health classes, that vitamins A, C, and E are the big antioxidants. It's really great. Pumpkin is, or vitamin A is good for skin, your eyes, cancer. It's filled with the B vitamins. So folates, you can pick any B vitamin, which are big for energy and endurance. And some of you are going to talk about that. And then our minerals. And so, again, I can tell you the ones, so vitamin A has been taken. But we do want to have one picked definitely by Wednesday, if not today. So the folates, and it does drive me crazy because like the one girl, the rainbow talk, she keeps calling it folic acid. And so I'm like, it's not supposed to be how you can tell somebody's a really good nutritionist. Anyway, the magnesium, iron, potassium are taken, but calcium's up for grabs. Phosphorus would be an interesting one. Copper also has very niche uses, iodine, and that's like when they show, and it's got everything, it's packed in there. And so if you take a multivitamin, right, the fairies, that's going to give you processed. And so there's a lot of debate if you should ever take multivitamins and stuff. And do we know, or you can, Tinkerbell would say, just eat the pumpkin. And so then I have to ask how much vitamin A, B, C, D, E, K, I was to say G is for Gaia, right? In the candy bar you're eating. And so looking at our labels, there's no fiber. This is an older label because this would then say 11 grams added sugar. These labels are just so much fun because they always put the fat first. And yeah. It's also an older one. Well, they're saying you get 2% of your calcium from it. And that's from the enriched flour. This is from M&Ms. The first ingredient in M&Ms is flour. That is fascinating. So people who are celiacs can't eat any of the chocolates and stuff because of that. One of the little kids was telling me, and they do say that down here. They don't tell you if it has kiwi, would they have to tell you that since that's a huge allergen? They don't put kiwi in anything, but this occurred to me. Yeah, and there's all the beautiful colors, like blue 2 lake, red 40 lake. I love that. I don't know what that means. And then the pumpkin seeds. I don't know what that other slide was. So pumpkin seeds are just loaded with fiber. Somebody in my other classes did an awesome talk about pumpkin seeds. And they're really high in MUFA. You guys remember MUFAs? The monounsaturated fatty acids. And again, if you're getting them in a whole food source, the seed, you're not going to have them oxidized. That's very different from getting them in the refined oil. So when people keep saying, oh, but olive oil is promoted. Again, that's from the Mediterranean diet. And in the Mediterranean, they're getting their olive oil like that day. They're going and pressing it out. There's somebody in the village who presses the olive oil and stuff. Or just eat olives. And oh, pumpkin seeds are actually really high in tryptophan, which gets converted to melatonin. So all these things that say that cherries are high in melatonin, it's kind of hard now because everything's been butchered on Google. I don't know if it's actually high in melatonin or cherries are actually high in tryptophan, which gets changed into serotonin and melatonin. So serotonin is our happy neurotransmitter and melatonin is the one. They're both associated with sleep. And it's really high in zinc. It's one of the highest sources of zinc. And for male health, for prostate, and for a sperm, it's pumpkin seeds. It's vitamin C and zinc and selenium. And so a handful of pumpkin seeds every day, if you're like wanting to be pregnant, you're having trouble, man has to eat a handful of pumpkin seeds every day. You do have to be careful because you can find raw pumpkin seeds. A lot of the other pumpkin seeds out there are just covered with the seed oils. And so same with sunflower seeds and all of those. And so you have to be careful that you find them raw, and then you can add, you know, if you need salt or something on them. I have no fear of salt. Yeah, so salt is an interesting thing. I mean, we get too much salt in highly processed food. And the unfortunate thing there is it's highly processed salt. And so people now are afraid to use salt on their food. If you're making real food and adding your own salt, you're not going to overdo the salt. If you're cutting out the processed food, like the beans, I don't remember if I mentioned it last week. Mention it now after the fact that when you buy cans of beans, there's quite a difference in the amount of salt. And so they do have the low salt alternatives. And for some reason, the organic ones are always low salt. But one of the things since that study came out like 20, 30 years ago, that they decided salt was the cause of high blood pressure and stuff.
You're ruining my job.
Well, no, I'm not going to talk about that. Anyway, so everybody stopped eating salt, but they still eat processed food. You should find out how much salt is in some of the, it's Stouffer's. It's some of the frozen food is like astronomical. Yeah, but it's the frozen dinners that were like astronomical. But anyway, so one of the things they did over 100 years ago is they started adding iodine to salt. And now that nobody does salt anymore, because everybody's so afraid of salt, goiters are coming back. And so it's actually, he's going to talk more about salt. I know, that's why I was like, okay, I won't mention that. Because when you mention it, they'll hear it a second time, they'll be like, wow, he's so smart, because I'm priming them, because nobody hears it the first time it's mentioned. So like when I talk to some about vitamin A, it's like when you guys talk about it, they'll really get it. And pumpkin seeds, you know, Josie, I get the advantage, I get to see all the different talks in different classes. Josie did an amazing talk on sesame for my other class. And I had no idea, like nobody's ever done sesame before. And so I had no idea how amazing sesame seeds are. So that's what's in tahini. You can buy sesame seeds. It's easier to just buy the tahini. And anyway, insulin regulation, probably because of the fiber. And I already mentioned prostate health, heart health. And they actually, when they analyze here, people who are really intelligent apparently have high levels of zinc and copper. Now with that, you can have too high levels of any of the minerals. And but zinc. Too high of copper is related to heart issues. And of course, orange, it's named oranges. We're out of orange season now. Oranges were really high price this year the whole time, usually when orange season comes in, but I thought there was something happened to the crop. And it's really interesting because in December, I go to the East Coast to spend with my mom at Christmas, and her fruit, all of her orange crop is coming from Florida, and here it's from California, and there's definitely a difference. But usually when we think of oranges and citrus, you can't think about it without vitamin C, and I already made the comment, that's why I put that picture there. You can take a pill, and actually Joey has a cold, so I do have, just because I still have the pills, so I give him that as well as the other stuff. But it has to be, if somebody's going to do vitamin C. In all of these, there's different forms of the vitamin, and there's always one form that our body wants, and the other form can be toxic. And it's one of the things with vitamin C, because some people can't handle it. But this is grapefruit. It's really high in this one. I'd never heard of this molecule. And there's no way you could ever look at every polyphenol or flavonoid that's out there, because there's a zillion. So these guys don't get to be in the vitamin category, but it's this whole world of polyphenols. Nobody's ever done grapefruit either, and you can find so many really fun pictures of grapefruit. But grapefruit is the highest in this molecule, which I must have the molecule because I'm a chemist. All right, and this molecule is found in the citrus, especially grapefruit. And I know that word, but I don't know what it is. What is it again?
I just know it's in a lot of teas. I think it's like a green citrus fruit.
Okay, I can't remember what it is. I know I've never seen it. I've seen that word, and I know I looked it up once. And then tomatoes, which we already talked about. And the thing that's interesting about grapefruit is this is my segue into yellow. And so I don't know why everyone puts grapefruit under yellow, because it sure looks pink or red to me. So I just put it in with.
When I get the super ripe, the flesh is yellow.
I know, but people.
But it's still pink inside.
The flesh. I know, right? Actually, when I was a kid, there were two different grapefruits, because I'm from Florida, and there were two different colors. So there was the pink and there was the more yellow one. But antioxidant, anti-tumor, antiviral, antibacterial. And actually, the comment I wanted to make there with the color is, you don't have to be like, oh, I ate a grapefruit, which color do I put it under? I honestly don't care. What I'm looking at is that you guys are thinking about that. Like, I would put red, orange, and yellow as one color, green as another color, and then the blue and purples as the other one. But you're trying to eat as much color as you can, and take it not as a burden. Oh my gosh, this homework, oh, it's so hard, it's so much. Take it as like, this is really cool. I'm going to eat colorful this week. And it's not eating Cheetos that are colorful, it's eating real food. Anti-inflammatory, antiviral, like we should have all been eating grapefruit during the past 2 years, right? And instead of going to the Chick-fil-A. And adaptogens. So I thought this was an interesting word. I'd never seen it, and then I forgot to look it up. Adaptogens are a whole nother category, and then this was anti-adaptogenic. But adaptogens, everybody does them now. So that's I don't remember. Holy basil is one. But that's 1 year they were in this cardioprotective. There we go. We finally have a picture. And this is the thing that's really cool. So at the top, that is an amino acid, phenylalanine. That is, some people that's toxic to them. And it gets changed in our body through these several steps until it becomes that, which is a polyphenol, because it has those rings, and they just flipped it over. But that's kind of how, I think, a similar way that all the polyphenols go through. But these other molecules actually also have wonderful effects. And so that's our segue into yellow. Yeah, so because the outside of the food is yellow, we put it in the yellow category. Again, I'm not worrying about that. I I don't know if the sheet I gave you has a category for white. Some people put white as a separate category. Again, that's up to you. If you want to put white as a separate thing, or put white this picture. And then I think every talk that I gave for you to watch this week, they all put potatoes down. All right. It's interesting. So, yeah, it is up there. Lemons are there. Lemons and scurvy. Lemons are really high in vitamin C. So I've talked about that before in here, that I know one person, I think I actually know 2 people who've gotten scurvy in the past 2 years. And so again, instead, I don't want you guys to say it's scurvy. They said it was extremely painful and took a long time to get the diagnosis, because there was only one lab in the country that actually did the test for it, because it's like doesn't exist anymore. But this was the limeys. They're called limeys because Captain Cook, I think, was the captain. He took fresh fruit on his boat when he went out into the Atlantic Ocean to find the New World. Anyway, lemons are sour because they have other acids in them, and lemons are just like a superfood. Lemon water every morning is like one of the best ways to get your digestive primed for the day, in warm water. And mangoes. So Edgar talked about mangoes. Mangoes are amazing. And are they yellow or orange? I don't really care. I think they're yellow. I would put them in yellow. And peppers, to me, all different colors. So green peppers, something has happened to green peppers and they taste terrible to me. I don't think they have any flavor, so I don't think I've had a green pepper forever. I do still eat the other colored bell peppers just because I have this thing about color. But they are filled with these guys again, because of the coloring. And they are, yeah, and chlorophyll, which I get to when we get to the greens. But you could just get different colored peppers. You can get that bag of all the different colored peppers. You can't talk about yellow without talking about bananas, because again, the skin is yellow, the inside's white. I don't care if you want to consider it yellow or white. But most people, when they think of bananas, it is the potassium that they think about. Bananas are not your highest source of potassium, but we'll leave that for Elena to talk about. You know, the slide that I'm missing under orange and yellow is sweet potatoes. Can't believe I totally forgot that. That's like, I can't go without sweet potatoes. But bananas are more than potassium. They are high in other minerals, and also really high in different vitamins. And they are super sweet because of the sugar in them. And they also have the tryptophan, which is a precursor for serotonin. So maybe that's why you eat 12 bananas at a time, because they make you super happy. Because they always do, right? Everybody eats bananas because they make you happy, unless you have a banana. And they apparently have histidine also in them. There was something more. And so tryptophan is going to be the precursor for serotonin. So eating a banana makes you happy. What's missing? Oh, it's going to be on the next one. Is they are really high in prebiotic. And so you can find supplements galore out there. And I'm pretty sure I've made the comment that I'm not a fan of supplements unless you're going through a health crisis and you need them to help you get over that hump to get back into health. And so eating whole food, because some people really can't for a while. But rather than buying this, why not just eat your fruit? Because fruit is all prebiotics. And so prebiotic means it's the fiber that feeds your microbiome. The thing that I think they're totally wrong with these things that they're saying, hey, this is premium prebiotic fiber, is my understanding when you isolate the fiber like that, it doesn't feed your microbiome. It works as fiber, it cleans you out. But to feed the microbiome, you have to have the sugar and fiber together in the whole food. And that is one of the things bananas do. Bananas, I remember I was your guys' age and somebody said to me, bananas are binding. I was like, what does that mean? That bananas can constipate you? So that would be, some people, they do that too. But if You ever have a bout where you get diarrhea? Joey went on a backpacking trip and came back, and 2 days later, of course, had diarrhea. And so I'm like, you're gonna eat bananas, because that can help with that. So I don't think that bananas will cause constipation, but they can help slow everything down. He also had to eat rice. I've never had that effect with either of them. When I was in Nepal, all I ate was white rice because that's all they had. And my bowels never moved so much in my life. But prebiotics, this is it. It's just like eating your fruits and vegetables. It's not one or the other, and it just feeds your microbiome. And so your microbiome so you hear about probiotics. And so probiotics are when people take pills that are like the mother load of bacteria, and that are going to thrive in your intestines. And it's like the sea turtle, maybe 1% actually gets colonized, but if you get that one, hopefully it will keep growing from there. But for the probiotics to work, you need the prebiotics, which means you have to eat food that is high in fiber. Jerusalem artichokes, now I can't remember the talk I was listening to, but I think it is that Jerusalem artichokes are considered the #1 prebiotic food. And I don't know why. It has something to do with the fiber. And I think they've overanalyzed everything. I honestly have had artichokes. I mean, I get them in a can that doesn't have all the extra stuff. My Aunt Mary made us artichokes once, and I just remember it was a lot of work to get to the actual meat. But chicory, you don't see that. Yacon, I think I talked about that once way back. It's really high in the polyfructose fructans. And then everyone talking about golden yellow, it is the food, the nectar of the gods, which is honey. And whenever I think of honey, and so Elena did a wonderful talk about honey. So honey is a superfood, but it has to be raw honey. It needs to be local honey. And that's when the magic happens. And you probably have a neighbor who has beehives and will sell you honey or give you honey, or you just go, the farmers markets are all opening and you just look anywhere and they're all selling honey. And it definitely is worth paying the price for the local honey. The stuff in the store on the shelves, if you look at it, if it doesn't say raw honey on it, it is high fructose corn syrup and corn syrup, and probably sucralose now and other stuff. But this is a picture from Nepal. These are the honey hunters. And so that is a rope ladder. It's hard to see again from the slideshow. You know, on the computer, all the pictures look beautiful. So anyway, and these are just like freaking amazing. And these guys climb up there. And they're just like covered with these. And this was like trying, so you could see it just goes down like 1,000 yards or 1,000 meters or whatever you want to think. I just remember many years ago, it's considered one of the most famous covers of National Geographic was when they did the honey hunters. I think they did like the top 10 most famous covers, but in not just Nepal, but other places. But again, there's like this huge cliff and this guy's like, they're getting honey. I mean, it's just amazing. They just kind of wrap themselves around that ladder and they don't fall. And I don't know if I could do it because that ladder is moving. I've been on the bridges that just go across the river and it's just like, that takes enough. So we're going to move into green. And when I actually think of green, you know, we did broccoli the first week, it is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is out there, I guess, on TikTok. I don't know what TikTok is, but I guess it went whatever viral or whatever you say. And so everyone in your generation is big into doing chlorophyll. You eat leafy greens and you're getting tons of chlorophyll, and then you're getting the fiber and everything. So unless you're extremely ill, which most of it seems to be up here for us, but that picture there is because one of the things that it's chlorophyll detoxes your liver. And so eating the greens is liver detox. Eating your leafy greens, that's why people do the green smoothies. You put some berries in, but what I do is I do an equal amount of berries, greens, and I have a garden that chard just grows wild. And so I go out there and it's going crazy now. They're getting huge. Yeah, but it's liver detox and gallbladder. So your liver does all this toxin stuff. And this was actually a really cool picture. So there's 2 stages they talk about with liver detox, and you don't need to worry about this. But the first phase, and more for those of you who've taken some of the biochemistry, that's where the oxidation reduction, there's like all those wonderful words. Anyway, in phase 2, there's 2 phases of detox that happen. And chlorophyll stimulates phase 2, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so that these animal studies, so aflatoxin is considered possibly the most toxic substance out there. And this is where peanuts got such a bad name, and where peanut allergies come from is this toxin grows on peanuts. And it was because of how we grew our peanut crop. So back when George Washington Carver was doing the peanut man, doing all of his stuff, he probably didn't have this issue. But we had all these cotton fields in the South, and cotton is not consumed by most people. There are some weird things that happen when people think they're going to lose weight, they eat cotton or something. But the cotton fields, they can use pesticides that would never be approved for human consumption because they're extremely toxic to kill the boll, weevil, and all that stuff. And then eventually they get rid of the cotton fields and they plant peanuts in this fields that have been destroyed. The peanuts are going to re-nitrate the ground and stuff, but in the meantime, the soil's been depleted, and you get these peanuts that can have this toxin on them. And people eat animal products, your liver is going to be doing more of the detoxification, and that's where it seems that these other toxins have issues. Anyway, so the chlorophyll increases phase 2 detox to help you get rid of all the toxins, especially. So this was probably, it was an animal model, yeah, and so that's why they used the aflatoxin, because it's an easy toxin to give to the animals to make them extremely ill. But it improves digestion and weight loss, and part of that is it's going to stimulate this hormone, which stimulates the gallbladder and the pancreas and the liver and the stomach. And so it's almost like it's a master switch in digestion to tell your body, but it helps you to eliminate food, to balance your fluid, to reduce constipation. So you're like, I gotta go get me some chlorophyll. There's like no regulation for any of these supplements and stuff. And some of this, there's people who've had to have liver transplants because they went on a green tea supplement. And I've never heard of anybody who went and bought kale and made a green smoothie needing a liver transplant. This is a study from 2014. So again, a reminder, you want to have studies when you talk about yourself, that chlorophyll supplements, they were supplementing, this is in Sweden, with the high carb diet, lowered their hunger and increased, this is the CCK, so cholecystokinin, which is this hormone that stimulates the release of everything's digestive enzymes. So it's saying, hey, pancreas, release your digestive enzymes, and liver, do your stuff. So it's basically this master that's saying digestion's happening, and it's related to the gallbladder. And so keeping our gallbladder healthy. And so it helped for women who are overweight, have issues with, they're on yo-yo dieting, that they eat and then they're eating the wrong food, and so they're becoming hypoglycemic because the food's getting digested fast. And so I would say, rather than doing the chlorophyll supplements, why don't you get the woman to eat a salad every day, and you would probably solve more of a problem. So there we go. So it's secreted, I'm sorry, not by the gallbladder, but it stimulates the gallbladder. So it's secreted by the upper part of your intestines, which again is like a second stomach. and it basically tells your body to keep digesting. But when I think of chlorophyll, so I didn't know any of that stuff until like 2 days ago, right? You think of green, and this is what chlorophyll looks like. I've shown this picture before, and so seeing it again is it's the exact same molecule that is in your blood cells. And so I don't think about it as detox. That's like, to me, a bonus that green is detox also, that this is going to get my oxygen around and give me more energy, right? And so there's plant chlorophyll is the same molecule. Another thing is plant chlorophyll has the magnesium instead of the iron. And so that's the color difference. The iron is going to make the red color, like the red planet, why Mars has that red hue. And if there was a green planet, it would probably have magnesium, but it's also a good source. Your leafy greens are a great source of magnesium because you're also getting the chlorophyll with it. And so it helps your blood. And again, another study where they had wheatgrass. So has anybody ever had wheatgrass? I'm like looking at her because I'm assuming she's the only one. Have you ever had wheatgrass? It's nasty. I had somebody who did their talk on wheatgrass and they brought in like little shots for everybody. And I'm like, okay, before you talk, you have to do a shot of wheatgrass. But then we took a break and they all disappeared. And so I think whoever was the next presenter like threw them all away because they were scared to. Because it was like, it's pretty strong. Did you have it straight? You put other stuff. Yeah, I was going to say, no, this was just wheatgrass. He was a student who had Lyme's disease, and so it changed his life. And Western medicine has absolutely no help for you. And so I had to go with naturopaths and chiropractic and stuff. And they got him on doing wheatgrass. And it helped to treat anemia and thalassemia. And again, most anemia, one of the biggest binders of iron in our body is cow's milk. And so people who have low iron levels, if you can get them off cow's milk, that will often do as much as anything. But apparently greens also help with all that. Also for acne treatment. And so you can find these face masks, but a 2015 study found gel containing the chlorophyllin actually decreased not just the acne, but the visible pores. It was a really small study, just for 3 weeks, but the fact anybody who has acne issues. Now, one of the things that I always get to see when I read everybody's healthy changes is most people talk about how their skin changed. And it is, if you're not eating all the sugar and processed food, and you're starting to eat food that is filled with all these nutrients, you're going to be feeding your fiber to microbiome. Your microbiome is what determines your skin, which is like, it's hard to get all of that in there. But greens, also eating leafy greens. And so, and this is the one I had no idea. Chlorophyll is actually a natural deodorant. And so you can actually buy these products. I had to Google it. And of course, Amazon, there was a whole bunch of stuff. And this is for people who've had colonoscopy or what's it called? So colostomy, and you're going to have really bad odors. This is a 1960 study, so they've been doing this for a long time, but basically colon issues that can help keep it fresh. This was my favorite study I think I've ever found. And so I do want to mention that you shouldn't be, when you're doing your 2 studies, they should be recent studies, but if you find some older studies, they are awesome. You can include them as like an additional piece to do. Because some of the older studies have been proven totally wrong, like the study on the estradiol for women that they gave all these women for 10 years, high doses of Premarin, which was pregnant mare urine is where the name came from, which was hormone replacement therapy, and it increased rates of pretty much diabetes. I think they like all ended up diabetic or something, except my mom. Again, my mom was given, we think, growth hormone as a small gal, and her and Uncle George are going to outlive everybody. They don't know what they were given by the doctor when they were little, but they were both like it probably populated their microbiome. They also grew up on a farm. And so my mom probably, and also like all of your grandmas and stuff, it's their microbiomes. They estimate we have 10% of the microbiome population, that we have all the bacteria, but we don't have diversity. And so it's eating diverse food. But this was geriatrics that for improved lover body odor, which I just love that term. It's like, so I don't know what we would call it now, but in older people living in their nursing homes. And so this is actually, right, I just think that's the sweetest thing. You work in a nursing home or assisted living. Okay. Right, we've changed the names because we'll have to change that name. It's like we don't call somebody a secretary anymore because no administrative assistant.
Oh, yeah,
Receptionist is
yeah.
considered
Oh,
not
yeah.
right anymore. And so actually you can actually find a lot of deodorants and mouthwashes actually have chlorophyll in them. And it's a strong antioxidant. But what I think of is it's the CoQ10, which is in our mitochondria. And so this is the chloroplast, which is where photosynthesis happens in plants, in the leaf of the plant. And this is the mitochondria, which is inside every cell in our body, lots of them. And this is in the mitochondria is where CoQ10 is happening. And this is where the chloroplast would be found. But CoQ10 is one of our most powerful antioxidants because in our mitochondria is where we're using oxygen and we're going to change it. And it gets changed often into free radicals. And so we need a powerful antioxidant to deal with the free radicals. And the problem is with any of these antioxidants, they work because they have 2 extra electrons. But as soon as they donate their electrons, that's it, they're done. But this guy's in your mitochondria, it's like all the way in there. So we need a way to just allow the same molecule to keep working. And it's chlorophyll that recharges it back to the ubiquinol. And so eating your leafy greens, having your smoothie, having your salad. I don't care how you're getting your greens in, but you need to have greens every day for the rest of your life. The leafy greens, it's the vegetables, really need to be the primary part. Kiwi also, she talked about kiwi, and the herbs that are green. So parsley is like a superfood, oregano, and it's awesome. You can just get 1 oregano plant and it will go wild through your whole yard. It loves our climate here. Zucchini, broccoli, right? Asparagus, which is out of season, cucumbers, there's kiwi she talked about, fennel, parsley, kale, chard. Mix it up, try different greens. We did broccoli already. Avocados, let's talk about avocados because they are green, and avocados actually more potassium than bananas. There's other things that have a lot more potassium than bananas, but it regulates blood sugar health. We'll see why in a moment. But there's that word again. It's really high in lutein, which blew me away when I saw that. That's part of why I took this slide, because I always think of that in, again, as I said, the red, orange, and yellows. The avocados got it. And it helps to, it's got the oleic acid, that's the fat. So yeah, that on the next slide. But I talked about homocysteine when I talked about amino acids. And so homocysteine is one of the best markers for heart disease. And I did not know that. Avocados actually help to keep a balance. It's also high in folic acid, which we should say it's high in folate because it's a natural source. And it's really high in glutathione. Glutathione is another one of the super antioxidants in our body. And I have a picture slide on glutathione in a moment. And this is the one that blew me away, was down here. And I'm like, no way, avocados are that high in fiber. And then I had to Google it. And I think I have it on the next slide. But yeah, it contains more fiber than other food. I don't know if they can say than any other food, but I had no idea that avocados, I think of them as fat, as the monounsaturated fat. Avocados, unfortunately, have a really dark side now because we have turned Mexico into a place where they, the cartels are running the avocado fields, and people are paid almost nothing and working 18-hour days, and it's destroyed the soil, destroyed the water. Like there's no water source anymore that's clean, and has to do with the avocados, because our consumption of avocados has gone up like 4-fold in the past 10 years or something, because probably because of TikTok, something probably showed up on there and everybody decided you need to have avocado toast, you need to have this, you need to have that. And avocados are really good, but there's glutathione, and part of why it's a super molecule is that sulfur group up there. It is an amino acid. It's 3 amino acids put together. So, and it's really good for liver health. Every cell in your body needs it for cellular growth. It helps insulin, oxidative stress, because again, and inflammation, these two always go hand in hand. But it is that it's a huge boost. And that clinic we go to across the street, that's one of the things a lot of people come in to get is the glutathione boost. Now, with that, sometimes people go in, they're like, oh, I need a glutathione boost. That sounds really cool. They need to be eating healthy, because I can look at a lot of these people who are going in there and be like, we really should be talking about the big picture rather than paying $100 for a shot of glutathione that you feel good for a day or two. Why not be eating healthy? And that was food labels, since we're in nutrition, but the fat, like people will say, well, I talked about fiber first. It is actually pretty high. This is a large avocado actually, because the calories is 322. The smaller ones are like 222 or something. But most of the calories are from fat, because fiber doesn't have any calories. But it is actually a really high source of fiber that is going to, your microbiome is going to love you. But you're not giving them the sugar that they like with the fruits and stuff. But it's really high in fats. And that was one of the other things in these talks that they all talk about how, and it was the first week when we talked about sugar, that the low fat fad that happened in the 80s probably is killing more people. And it's, they actually, I talked about, because you put me on it with the seed oils, we look at high fructose corn syrup, increasing the rates of obesity and stuff. So this increase in the amount of sugar and all the different sugars, the sucralose and the fake sugars are even worse for you than possibly worse than high fructose corn syrup, because it just destroys your microbiome. Fructose destroys your hemoglobin, your blood cells, better than glucose. So this whole thing where we look at blood glucose levels is we're looking at like mono one thing. But this guy's talk was that was actually our decrease in the consumption of the saturated fats, that we all said the saturated fats are the problem. We took it out of everything. Anyway, he was another one who's big into avocados, because they're high in monounsaturated is their biggest. And then they of course talk about the vitamins, which to me this is fascinating, because there's much more. I don't know who decided on the food labels that we need to put these for, but for some reason every food label, and if you go and look, they all say none of the other vitamins, but A, C, calcium, and iron. Like, who decided those 4 needed to be on every food label? Sodium's on there too, right? Up higher. But it's interesting. Oh, there we go. And it's because they have so many more, and this doesn't really cover it because it's those super molecules like glutathione and stuff, and that they all work together to do their thing. And so we get into blues. And again, blue is really hard to do. Actually, this is not truly blue, it's indigo. There's nothing that's blue. I guess the blue corn, I don't know if that's blue, but the blues, indigos, and purples really go together, and the polyphenolic flavonoids. So blueberries, I did this with my kids' class like 5-6 years ago, and I told them that I had them a challenge, could they eat the rainbow for a week? And they ate one day red, one day orange. So I want to be clear, you guys are trying your best to eat as many colors every day. If you can do every color every day, great. But then the one girl came back and said, well, blueberries are actually purple. My mom told me they're not blue. And so I don't care if you call them blue or purple. But that is a polyphenolic flavonoid, is those rings are the phenols, and they're going to have those little dots are the oxygens, I'm pretty sure in this picture. But these are really high in all the berries. And so blueberries are really high in fiber, micronutrients. Manganese would be a really fun one. Maybe when you do magnesium, you talk about manganese too. And the anthocyanins, which I'm going to get to. And this was something, this was from some paper, something I was reading. They said that the chemical composition of blueberries is really close to human blood plasma in our mix of the micronutrients. And that's one of the reasons it's such a superfood. I have no idea. I'd never seen that anywhere, but it's really good for our blood. And then nori is the seaweed that if you eat sushi, it's the seaweed that they wrap it in. And if you're not going to do, I wrote a note to somebody in my other class because he decided for the month of May, he's giving up salt. And I had to write him a note saying you can't give up salt because you need the iodine in salt. And it's, you got to give up all the processed stuff, which sounds like you did. And if you're going to give up salt for real, then you have to eat seaweed every day because you have to get the iodine. You don't have to eat much seaweed. Anyway, nori helps to regulate and purify the blood. And so it's possible that my slide got mixed up. It might be that nori is chemical composition close to human blood. That would make more sense. That's one of the molecules in there. It's really high in all these vitamins. And so that would actually make more sense that the seaweed, that type of seaweed. And then wakame is actually my favorite. So the seaweed salads are with the sesame, and they help with lowering everything, cholesterol, blood pressure, and then elderberries. So elderberries is the sambucol that a lot of people just eat them how they are. I think they're extremely bitter, but they are made for cold and flu season. It's just like the mother lode of antioxidants because they're super dark color and they boost your immune system. So I always have some around and totally forgot about it because Joey was the one who wasn't feeling good. And I remembered last night. I have a friend who makes herbs and stuff, and she said it didn't work with COVID. Like her whole family got COVID, and the elderberries, it's like the only thing she's ever seen that did not respond to elderberries. So they were using cat's claw, which I didn't have any to give Joey. He just has a cold. He has like the postnasal drip thing, but it helps with inflammation and stress and constipation. And then grapes might be, and it's specifically the Concord grapes, but you want to eat the darker skin, and that's the whole red wine. It's called the French paradox because people in France ate a lot of cheese, but they weren't getting heart issues. They eat tons of saturated, and they drink red wine every day. You can't go to France and not eat bread and red wine. I think it was Steven said if he went to France. I have actually former students on a plane right now heading to Paris for 3 months. So yeah, resveratrol. So this might be resveratrol. That like looks like generic polyphenol. But that one might be resveratrol because the other ones might be different. There's also a paradox with this. I heard another talk, and resveratrol, they've isolated it. You can take tablets and stuff, and it's super for heart health and stuff. But the other thing is people who tend to be wine drinkers are very different from people who are like hard liquor drinkers or beer drinkers. So people who drink wine tend to have a higher education. It was this talk I heard, and they looked at people's suitcases of people who drink wine, like they take them. And what do you take with you when you're going away? And people who drink wine tend to take their running shoes with them because they're going to go for a walk or a run. And people who are beer, hard liquor drinkers are the workers. They're the ones up there fixing the roof of your house and stuff like of your house and stuff like that. And so they were wondering if it's really, I mean, resveratrol is because it's got the flavonoid that are all really good for you. And no idea what that said. But that's from all the different ones that have all these wonderful words that we can say, the anthocyanins. I think I have a picture of their molecules and stuff. And so again, the R group is it just gets rearranged and they put them all into different, and they all have S's on the end because there's a whole bunch of different categories with them now as they start changing. And it's in the whole food that you're getting a whole mix of different ones, and they work synergistically. And okay, we can get through purple. And so anthocyanin, it shows up with some of the other dark colors. So with the blues, the polyphenols and anthocyanins really go together, even though they have a distinct part. They're probably made in a similar way, but that's what the anthocyanin structure is. And again, this piece differs for different ones. And it comes from this Greek word, and I wish I could read Greek, but it means flower dark blue. So that's where the word came from. And it is the pigment that makes food have this deep purple or deep dark blue color. And it does change color with pH. So if you were in my Chem 104 class, we actually do a lab, I do with the kids, where you just take cabbage and you cook it up, and then you add it to a bunch of different stuff, and you get different colors. And so if it turns pink, it's acidic. If it turns blue, green, yellow, it is basic. And these, whoops. So again, eggplant, I'm not a fan of eggplant. It's a texture thing, but slimy foods are apparently the best food for blood pressure. I have no idea why, but the slimy foods are the one thing I cannot handle. That's the okra, eggplant, something else. Like once a year, I'll get eggplant at the farmer's market, make one thing, and I'm like, yeah, still don't like it. But all of these things have the dark colors, and you can put them in other color you decide. But this is like one of the best things for your health of your brain. So cognitive function, and it slows down our mental aging. And so this is a good lesson for you guys, that this projector is extremely dark. Like it's perfectly fine on the screen. So you can always see it on the screen, but avoid dark on dark with this projector. So learning and memory, yeah. And this is actually probably another reason why. So if you're eating healthy food, then you're not eating this stuff. And this is actually sucralose. And so sucralose just destroys an aspartame that they just destroy. That's aspartame, actually, all the sugar-free stuff, your microbiome. And your microbiome is what makes your brain work. And right, you should be horrified. Or if you'd rather do regular sugar, the commercial baked goods. So there's somebody in my other class, and that's actually what they're giving up for the month of May, is the commercial baked goods. It's like, I'm gonna bake at home, different treats. We're gonna have fun. So we talked about free radicals again, so it's a loss. We overstimulate the dopamine response, so just like cocaine and the other street drugs, and your brain shrinks. And so supplements don't do the same thing as eating whole foods. You've heard me say it a dozen times today and a dozen times in the past, that you got to get it from whole foods. And that's why you're trying to eat as best you can different rainbow colors and staying away from the highly processed crap. That's just going to make you, it's the 7th week of the term. This is right. We're not in the first 5 weeks where everything's fresh and stuff. We're in your midterms, another class. People are behind. It's like, you get frazzled, and you have a midterm every week in anatomy, I think. And we're not at where you can see the end. Like we still have a month to go, right? So we still have 4 weeks to go. And so this is the most important week. That's part of why I decided to do the rainbow. I woke up, actually, I didn't know what I was going to do Saturday morning. I woke up and had a clear image that I was supposed to teach about the rainbow this week. And you guys were going to eat the rainbow. Because if you're eating really healthy, I don't know if I told in here the story. I taught Chem 106, we'd always have a final, and we'd all be together in the past for the whole year, 104, 105, 106, and we became a really close class. And so after final 106, I would meet them at a restaurant. And so it was down at Edgefield. We'd get one of the big tables, and I'd get there like an hour later because I'd go and grade their tests. It would be an all Scantron, and so I'd grade them, and Scantron finals never go well, but you know, we'd all like bonded, and everybody, there's all these other points that like boost your grade. And this one guy who was just like a strong B student, and that's what he was, and he was good with that. He had like the highest grade, like a really high grade. And so I get down there and I just go and sit down next to him. And I'm like, what did you do today? And he's like, oh, I went on a long walk and I ate a big salad. And basically he ate extremely healthy, And he got in there and everybody else is showing up with their soda and their whatever power bars or Snickers and stuff. And they're sitting there and eating whatever, Cheetos, nachos, I don't know, during the test, and you're screwing your brain over. So we're going to make it through the 7th week, and you're going to be the inspiration for all of your classmates and for yourself, because you're going to be in school again and you're going to hit the 7th week. It's not the middle of the term. It's like we're past the middle, but we're not. This week is, and you all know that. And so you want to eat healthy so that your brain stays healthy. So you're not feeling like this. You've all felt like that. You might feel like that right now. It's going to be a rainy Thursday. So there's that's the anthocyanin structure that's really high in all your berries. That really helps your brain, your immunity, your cancer. It does everything. Your liver, heart health. Those are pomegranates, not little red pills. And your liver, the whole liver detox thing that I talked about with chlorophyll. And so it's eating all the colors because they all work together, because the chlorophyll was helping the one part of the detox and also with the cold, that eating really healthy, garlic and stuff. Yeah. And so eating purple also for longevity, because you want to have longevity. Oh, and then everybody, a lot of them actually have white. It's not on the chart. You don't have to use the chart that is in the week 7 folder. But it's a reminder, it is Monday. So hopefully you're finishing up last week's stuff and we'll be submitting it. And then you can start today or tomorrow, your rainbow. That white is a color. And the problem with white is we've so overprocessed it. Again, it's the cereals and the pastas that this guy was putting down there with the candy and the white rice and the white bread. And have fun when you guys do your slideshow, because again, your next one's next week, but it's just a vitamin or a mineral. I made it easy for you. You should easily be able to find studies and stuff. And this is more what we think of. They have a lot of dairy in here. This is a pretty picture, but cauliflower. And these guys are big for detox because of the garlic and onions and the mushrooms, which I'll talk about more. Turnips and radishes. I am not a fan of turnip, but you can put them in soups. Yeah, no, I can't even handle them in soups. Does anybody like turnips? I have not actually met anybody except my mom, who grew up on a farm, and I think that was all they had to eat some days in the winter. And cauliflower, of course, you've all heard of, is a superfood. Yeah. Oh, and I thought that, if you're gonna do it, we should talk about that chocolate is a superfood. So I'll talk about chocolate, because that should really be a color too, I think, on your food chart. It has to not be chocolate though, it needs to be cacao. So you can add that to your food chart. If you're gonna add white, you should definitely add chocolate. And we'll start there the next class, and I will stop recording.